Welcome to the OPO Live Beyond series, where we look at the lives and stories of ordinary South Africans who turned a challenge into a unique opportunity. My name is Luyolo Mali, and I am the founder and creative brains behind Diski Talk with Luyolo. I'm a storyteller, tactical analyst, and an all-round content creator. And on today's episode, we discuss all things sports transformation. However, before we get into it, I would like to give the opportunity to my special guests to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Mcebisi. I'm the marketing manager for the Sunshine Tour. Avid golfer, I'm sure as you can tell because I work for the Sunshine Tour, but also an avid sports fan. Played sports my whole life, and yeah, really excited to be here today.
Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm quite humbled to be here. My name is Tumelo Selikane. I work at Nielson Sports South Africa as a senior client service manager. In my spare time, I'm not so much of a golfer. I'm still trying the golfing right now. I have bumped into him a few times, well, one or two times on the golf course, but outside of that, I enjoy running, I enjoy mountain biking, just in terms of sports that I watch, I'm quite an avid Formula One fan. Like literally every weekend, that's me in front of the TV.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karabo Phasha. I'm a SuperSport analyst. That's what I do. Born and bred, live football. Also played the game for Orlando Pirates, played for Wits, played for the national team under 17. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Lovely to meet you, gentlemen. So as we get into it, I'd like for us to take a trip down memory lane. Do you guys remember your fondest memories when you guys were young with regards to sports and how you fell in love with sports? Mcebisi?
I think it's going to be two different things. I think my first memory when it comes to sports and falling in love with sports would probably be the 1994 FIFA World Cup.
Yeah.
It's 1994, I must have been about 6 years old, somewhere around there. So it's very, very, like, don't quote me on what happened in every single game. It's very, very vague memories. But I think, my father being a football fan and an ex-professional, it was easy for me to fall into football as something that I loved.
Yeah,
I think on my side, I'm gonna go 1 year beyond 1994. So I'm actually going to 1995, and it has to be the Rugby World Cup. The first time the Springboks won the actual World Cup, and for me at that point in time, something I quite vividly remember was, I think if you bought a packet of chips or whatever it was, you'd get a coupon or a token, and then you'd have to go and collect and exchange all these things with your friends. So I remember doing that and building teams and getting these stickers in these books. So that for me was quite an experience. But even above that, I think the Springboks winning the final, that was a momentous occasion. It was a nation building experience, quite festive. Everybody was out on the road, hooting, cheering and celebration. So for me, in terms of my earliest and fondest memory, that really, really sticks out.
I think for me, it's got to be the same year, but with the club that I represented, I played for, Orlando Pirates, winning the CAF Champions League, becoming the first club in the Southern African Hemisphere to win the Champions League. With my dad, he was also teary-eyed when they lifted the trophy, because he wanted to play professionally, but he couldn't. So I think for me, that's when I fell in love with the game, particularly football, and going on to also, wear the badge of Orlando Pirates and just being at Pirates. I think for me, that's where the love started. But obviously, back to 1995 when they won the CAF Champions League with players such as Chiris Kosana, Luke Zoa as well in the center of midfield. So I think for me, that was when my fondest memories of sports, particularly football, started.
So we've had a look at how it was like when you guys were growing up, and I want us now to focus on the status quo. How has your career progressed to where it is today, Mcebisi?
So sports has played a fundamental role, I think, in my whole life, and specifically within my career. I've basically can say that I've worked solely in sports since I started working, mainly within the marketing and the sponsorship space, but all within a sports sort of foundation and a sports framework. And I think it's been great because I'm passionate about sports and I'm passionate about a variety of different sports.
Yeah, and Tumelo, how has your career progressed?
Yeah, on my side, it's quite an interesting story to see, to basically tell you how I've landed up over here. So my background, I come from an eventing background really, and I think in terms of sports in particular, I've worked with a great hands-on team to put just a few tournaments together from a big activation and campaign point of view. So I don't know if you guys might have known, but there's this township tournament called Rakabolo. For pretty much 3-4 years in a row. I worked on that tournament, going to various townships, creating these five-a-side teams with a lot of people, obviously ultimately getting them right through to the end to win what was it back then, 100,000 Rand. Yeah, then over and above that, I've also had the opportunity to host like game night viewing events, for like either like a Rugby World Cup or the UEFA Champions League. So I think my involvement in that way from a sports point of view and from an eventing point of view, and like I said, weirdly enough, has landed me up into the sports industry from a research and data.
It's quite interesting because my passion has always been football and to make it professionally. But at a certain time, I think it was around 2015, 14, my parents were up against it. That's when a lot of players were starting to go astray, in regards to their, antics off the field. And they said, it's better that you go to varsity rather than, destroying your own life or career. And I went to TUT, I studied my sports management and then journalism there. I started at the lower ranks, to be quite honest, building my name, going to press conferences, attending matches, and also lying to my parents saying that, I need money for petrol to go for interviews, knowing that, it's closer to the weekend, I want to cover those matches. That's what, it's I think more than anything, the passion that I had for football, and then go into broadcasting. And, the call was made last year, to join SuperSport, and I'm humbled. It's a totally different space, very difficult, very, very competitive as well. It's a dog eat dog type of environment, So for me, I think I'm learning a lot, and I'm quite happy with how my career is going thus far, and hopefully I can continue being better at what I do.
And since we're speaking all things sports transformation, I think it's very important that we touch on the digital aspect, because that is the era that we currently live in. How much has technology played a role in your career thus far, Mcebisi?
A massive role. I think just in terms of looking for jobs, you do that now, on a device or on a computer. Scrolling LinkedIn or even social media platforms now. A lot of companies and organizations are advertising on those platforms. And then I think in terms of just as well getting insights, we work quite closely with Nielson, just getting insights into what the people that you're targeting, your target market, the fans, even sometimes your players, what they're doing, what they like, what they don't like. It's all being done through digital means. So it's played a massive role, and I think it'll continue to play a massive role in the development of not only sport, but any type of industry. And it's just up to us to try and keep up with that evolution and make sure that we don't get left behind.
Yeah. And would you echo the same sentiments, or would you add to it?
No, definitely. I mean, if I were to think back when I was a child, I used to wait every single Monday for a show called Was Our Weekend, for example, just to get like a full week's wrap of, what took place over the week, to get highlights, to get results in terms of who scored the most amount of goals, etc., etc. So for me right now in my world, in terms of, as Mcebisi mentioned, in terms of the amount of access to data that we have, we are able to essentially go and build and define and create like a dashboard where all of that data can be housed, talking about TV viewership profiles, TV viewership audience numbers, social media, we can check trends. And for me, the beauty behind it is that it's all live and it's all accessible, like, literally at your fingertips. You can whip out your phone, you can go into an app, you can have a look at that, you can watch highlight reels, you can see who's been transferred from this team to that team. So for me, technology has played a major role in terms of how sports is consumed by us, from a local and from a global perspective.
Yeah. Karabo?
I think same sentiments as well, particularly with, during lockdown, when lockdown started, I started my own football website. And during the time, Mcebisi was still at the club, and we met prior to that, I think 3 or 4 years before 2020. And when I told him what is it that I want to do, he said, at Sundowns, it's quite difficult to get into the club. But what he did, he sent me voice notes of exclusives. So I'd write that and also sell it to radio stations. And that's how, I also parachuted myself to where I am now, getting interviews with TV stations, with the radio stations across South Africa, international as well. I got an opportunity to work with Sky Sports purely because of my website that I started. So I think technology is very important. And as you guys are also doing, it's going to play a massive role going on, from here on into the future.
Yeah. And when speaking of that, what are some of the challenges that one is likely to encounter when pursuing a career within the sports industry? Start with you, Mcebisi.
Sure. It depends. I think there's a wide range of challenges that you'll face. I think when it comes to trying to become a professional, something that I'm sure Karabo can echo, and I mentioned earlier on when I wanted to become a professional footballer as well. There's a lot of challenges you'll face in that sense. Within the actual professional space of working a 9 to 5 or any type of sort of job, you'll face, challenges such as competition. Whether you look at that as a challenge or not, but I think it can be a challenge. Adaptability, just being able to adapt to this new changing world that we've mentioned, how technology is changing the face of sport. And then I also think, in terms of understanding your target market and your fan base, that maybe isn't something specific to sports and the sports industry. I think that it goes across the board. In terms of, you need to try and understand the people that you're trying to market towards. You need to understand the people that you're working with. You need to understand your main stakeholders. I think understanding the realm in which you work is probably the biggest challenge, because it's something that continuously changes all the time. There's different age groups, different backgrounds, ethnicities, religions. All those things play a role in how the people that you are targeting consume your product. So that's probably one of the biggest things to try and navigate and to try and understand if you're working in any industry, but definitely within the sports industry as well.
Yeah, and what would you say to that, Karabo?
I think for me, it's two ways. First and foremost, because I play the game at junior level, I think you've got to be mentally strong. It's very, very tough, to make it professionally, and the support as well. You've got to have support at home, your friends as well, but mental strength. Because when I started at Pirates, when you're a new player, some of the players think you're going to take the spot, and Bao pass up ball, very short from close range, and the coach thinks so it's very, very important for you to be strong mentally. And I think in broadcasting as well, every broadcasting at SuperSport, it seems like it's your last, so you've got to be on your game, on your toes each and every broadcast, and they make you feel that today you really didn't have a good a day in the office. So I think for me, you've got to be mentally strong. The support that you have at home is very, very key as well.
Yeah, and Tumelo?
Within the sports industry, it is up to us as people that work in the industry to be able to develop certain programs or platforms for us to be able to identify talent, to be able to nurture that talent, to be able to provide any form of infrastructure or support structure to be able to not have that person that's entering the sports industry from a participation point of view worry about, oh no, who's going to see me at this thing? He knows when he goes and plays at a Craven Week, whatever the case might be, that there is someone there that will identify him, and then from that point onward, he is able to flourish later in his life, or to wherever he needs to go to, essentially.
Mcebisi, I want us to look at it from sort of a two-pronged perspective with regards to qualifications and skills. Which are some of the skills which are necessary to ensure that you develop into this whole-round human being, and which are some of the qualifications were important with regards to your career?
So it's interesting, and I think it's two-pronged. It's just something that Tumelo mentioned earlier on that I just want to expand on a little bit in relation to this question, is that my undergrad degree was in environmental geographical sciences and politics. After that, I did end up getting a sports management degree, in my postgrad, and now I work in sports. But it just shows, as Tumelo said, that you aren't locked into any type of industry or any type of field just because of what you studied. You can, broaden sort of your level of knowledge if you want to, and you can experiment and try different things. What you've studied will have taught you a way of thinking and a way of sort of approaching work, which will be applicable across every single thing that you do. In terms of expanding your expertise, we've spoken about it being a digital age. I think, there's so many free courses and free qualifications that you can get, online. And I think on Twitter, there's quite a few different people who share this knowledge freely. And I think expanding your knowledge of just digital marketing is important, because marketing goes into, I'm not just saying it because I'm a marketer, but it goes into such a wide range of industries.
Yeah. And when we look at it then from a grassroots perspective, and we look at the young ones coming up, and with you, Karabo, having played at various football clubs at grassroots level, how important is it to have the right foundation?
It's imperative. It's second to none, because that's where you learn the proper basics of a footballer, aspects such as your first touch, your spacing, your body rotation in terms of receiving the ball, your heading skills as well. They also work on your confidence, your balance. So there's a lot of things that at the academy level that they work with. And one important aspect that I also have to mention is, for me at Pirates, not just on the field, but they also worked on an aspect that I think for me is very important, to be a human being. we're not just footballers, but they develop a human being side of things, in respect to how you speak to people, how you conduct yourself off the pitch, how you, come across, that's very important.
Yeah. And earlier on, Karabo, you touched on the human side, and the human values, and when you then look at our athletes, what is necessary and key for them with regards to securing their futures beyond their playing days? I'll start with you, Tumelo.
Yeah, for me, that's a great topic. I quite love it. And I think for me, it's simply, I think it's important for athletes to understand that they're not just athletes, they are brands, So in the same way that like a brand that is sold off shelf or a service that is offered, in the same way that it's got a full brand team, it's got a full marketing team, it's got a full strat team, I think athletes need to understand that they need that as well.
It's quite spot on in regards to what he's saying, and I think footballers, predominantly footballers for me, because I work closely with them, it's for them to really, really think beyond playing. We've seen a lot of players, post their playing careers, they tend to not have a good life. So that's important that, maybe towards when you start being mature, 24, 25, and you start raking in the money, that's where you've got to start, thinking as a businessman, or, speak to people who are, into business, and they can try to help you, because it's quite sad, to see footballers at one stage, he was everything, and then after playing, we have to try and contribute to the type of lifestyle that he wants.
Yeah. And what are your views on that, Mcebisi?
I think while I do agree with what Tumelo and Karabo have both said, I think it's important as well to not ignore the role that mentorship has to play in this aspect. So like Karabo mentioned, Orlando Pirates played a big role in how you wanted to sort of grow and mature as an adult. I think it's important to have that in all aspects in every single sport. I think that, you might find you do get people, youngsters who are saying they know that they have to do it, but the question is now how? How do I make sure that I'm financially literate? How do I make sure that I understand that once my career is done, there's this and that I can do? How do I avail myself to brands for sponsorship to show them that I can, operate more than just as a professional sports person, but I can do something outside of my sport and of my realm of expertise is vital.
Yeah. So when we tie up this conversation, gentlemen, and I really enjoyed the conversation, to those young people watching at home, what advice would you give them if they're trying to pursue a career within the sports industry? Start with you, Karabo.
I think for me, first and foremost, it's confidence. You've got to be very confident in yourself. You've got to believe in yourself. That's where it all, starts. And you never give up. Never ever give up. It might take you a very long time, but as long as you're working each and every single day, and never ever doubt the simple or small steps that you take. I for one, I started at online radio station that was not known, but I never said this is not going to help me, because I had an idea, a long-term idea as to what is it that I want to become. And now I'm working with SuperSport, I'm working with Sky Sports as well. The small steps in your life really, really play a very, very important and pivotal role. So never, never, ever give up. Believe in yourself, show confidence, and you'll definitely get there.
From my perspective, once again, I'd just like to say that they must just get involved. Just get involved. No matter how small, no matter how big it is, you'll be surprised how far you can get. Especially if you remain persistent, if you surround yourself with the right people, in terms of the people that you aspire to. If you know that there's a match or a training facility that's nearby, for example, go to their training facility, see how things are. If they just get involved, at some point or another, they will get an opportunity to path a career into something formidable. So they just need to get into it.
I think building on from what the two guys have said, you need to take risks. I think it leads on nicely from having confidence, and it leads on from getting involved. Is you need to take risks. I think, you don't know what messaging that one person at XYZ company will do. Message them, ask them questions, apply for the job that you don't have the right amount of experience for, or you don't have the right background in.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and wishing you guys all the best in your current endeavors and what you're trying to achieve with regards to your guys' careers. So that was yet another special episode of the Oppo Live Beyond series, where we discussed all things sports transformation. Thank you very much to Oppo for giving us this platform to discuss sports transformation and look at the lives of these young, great South African men. Thank you very much for watching. Please do follow us on all our social media platforms for updates and giveaways. Signing out.